Okay, good evening or good afternoon. This is day number 139 of making little videos describe a day in life of a schizophrenic, thoughts in the life of a schizophrenic. And I believe that I am experienced schizophrenia, but I don't believe I am diseased or crazy, and that I am subject to what is called a cognitive war. I have written a book on medium.com describe being technologies that could be examples of what could cause schizophrenic symptoms to some degree. And in that book, it also includes my thought processes, which could have gotten me targeted for cognitive war, schizophrenic affliction. On day 17 of these videos, I describe why I call myself schizophrenic rather than targeted individual. And on day 45, I express in the 3-minute intro why I make these videos in the first place. In day 138, I'd give some ideas about the symptoms that I have as a schizophrenic in 138, and I make these videos to just humanize myself to some degree and to give humanize myself amidst the stigma of the schizophrenia and the defamation of character that I receive politically from people in the underworld or whatever this thing is. Okay, so I write a little thought log, and I was going to start off today talking about some of my thoughts in my thought log. And I started off with I was reading out of the book Unacknowledged, and it's kind of interesting that the book is titled Unacknowledged because that's kind of the way the system works. It does all this stuff like the breakaway civilization and the dictatorship, what was Alex Constantine called the psychic dictatorship. It operates unacknowledged, and it does get acknowledged to some degree by on the outskirts or whatever. So they kind of float that out there. And there was a psychologist or somebody, I think his name is Hoffman, and he wrote a book about the psychology of mind wars and stuff like that. I think it was criminal psychology. I can't remember, but I have it written in my book. I just don't remember it. And he says that they reveal the method a lot of times when they're going about these things that they do, like the Freemasons and stuff like that. They'll reveal the method, and so, but for the most part, it goes unacknowledged. Anyways, in this book, Unacknowledged by Stephen M. Greer, he was talking about Steven Spielberg, and supposedly Steven Spielberg, who's coming out with a movie in soon, I guess, about UFOs, is he has access. Steven Spielberg supposedly has access to Project Blue Book microfilms and stuff like that. So he's got some sort of clearance in the government, which I guess is acknowledged and known about. But he has some sort of high clearance to get those access to those films, and so he has some sort of documented knowledge about this program or access to documented knowledge of the program that not everybody has. So I thought that was interesting. So I'll be interested to watch that movie and, as a regular citizen subject to the breakaway civilizations, paranormal, cognitive war, and all that. So, and as just like a regular human on Earth who's not part of breakaway civ, I learned about accretion. So in my book by Sarah Walker, I was learning about this word called accretion. I guess it's a scientific word that a lot of people know, but I don't know. And there's a word she uses called anti-accretion, which describes humans going into space. Accretion is like how the planets form and stuff, the planetary formation where matter comes down, and I guess it's called accretion. It gets together and it spins and it turns it into a ball and a big mass. So it's the coming together of matter is called accretion and creating planets. And anti-accretion is like we are now going out into the universe as like these separate nodes and taking our satellites and machinery and all our creations into space and stuff. So like the planet life force, if the planet is just one big life force, now it's going out and it's extending. Earth is extending beyond and stuff. And so it makes me think like, well, where does Earth come from? Like stars have been out in the universe for a long time, so there's like accretion. So I guess Earth formed through some other things anti-accretion, but even though it was accretion for Earth, but it's anti-accretion for something else, and so I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. And all right, so earlier today, I was thinking, and I oftentimes will get triggered by getting a phone call. I oftentimes will get triggered by things because I'm in a mind control program and I have the schizophrenia program working on me. And sometimes they'll say things and it will trigger memory of the past, and or even right now it'll trigger something in me. And sometimes it triggers anger. And so I was remember, you deal with anger on a daily basis in this program, and you have to like set it aside or something. Just have to like go about your day, or think some other thought. Like drink a coffee, listen to a piece of music, read a book, have some sort of other input into you to take you back to the get away from the anger and stuff. And so I'm not trying to dehumanize schizophrenics and say we're just like these angry people or whatever. I'm, some schizophrenics are going through crazier times than I am at this point in time, and even though I go through something that's kind of crazy, and it's it can create anger, and so there's a lot. I guess a lot of people can relate to that because our world is crazy, and a lot of people go through a lot of crazy stuff, and it makes you angry. And so I was reminding today that my personal battle with anger. And so I was thinking that the world quit on me when they decided to violate me my freedom. So I quit on the world, and to some degree I have quit on the world. Like I hide away, and I just go into my own worlds. I go into my books. I go into go to amusement parks. I go to sporting events, and I go to those kind of things. And I just say, the world quit on me when they said you can't go about your business. You can't be free to choose what you want to choose with your life, or you can't be free to live your life without us taking complete control of you and deciding what you're going to do and everything. And so I was like, when you decided to do that to me and violate me in all the thousands of other ways I was violated, or put me on a feed to the whole public or something, and like be a Truman Show and everything, or just wage psychological war and drive me crazy, or won't even let me. And for a long time, they didn't even let me think my own thoughts in my head without them driving me crazy. And so, like when you decided to do that, or like rape me with Donald Trump and stuff, then I'm gonna quit on you. And so I thought that, and uh, to some degree, I have quit on the world, but not it's not all the time. But I was reminded by a post saying that, and I was reminded by this by a post that said it was a person on social media, and they said that all men are handsome. And I was thinking to myself, it would have been nice if that was something people thought. I don't even think all people think that, but it would be nice if that was something people thought 10, 15 years ago, when everybody, the whole world, participated and told everybody that I was ugly. And they told me that I was ugly for 10, 15 years and didn't let me go about and choose what I wanted to do with my life, or pick partners, or uh, not controlling me, and they stole my 20s and 30s from me. And so I was thinking, like, all because I wasn't perfect or something, and it was like, it was just, and it was all trying to control, like, wouldn't let me go about and organically participate in society. And they were belittling me and demeaning me everywhere I went and stuff. And so it was like, and they remind me of these things because sometimes they turn on that aspect of the programming, and they remind me like this is you or something. And so and now that having they've done that, they don't even acknowledge that they did it. And so I'm laughing because it's kind of funny because it's like it's so ludicrous. It's like not only did they do that, steal your 20s and 30s, but now they won't even acknowledge that they did it. And it's like you know you're left to pick up the pieces. And so I deal with this anger on a daily basis, but it's never going to go away, I think, fully, because it was a robbery. And I set it aside and I accept it to some degree because, you know, if the anger just pops up with like little triggers, and they're trying to trigger the anger. And so they're trying to get you into this anger state and become this like big mad guy, like go into conspiracy circles or go into revolutionary circles or go into fascist circles. They want you into these little avenues of like angry people and stuff. And so I don't do that. I just stick to myself and I go about my business. I have my beliefs. I have my ideas about politics and stuff, and I say them here because I think it's worth taking note. Like because I had these beliefs, I'm basically a humanist with some Gnostic ideas about reality, but I believe there's a good force of good in the universe, and I think that our culture should be about taking care of each other and things like that. And so, I believe there's like a synthesis that we could create in the world where everybody we want to have peace and freedom for everybody and stuff like that. So there's a actual party, Piece of Freedom. I was just talking about that with somebody, but uh, anyways, so I was thinking about that today, and so yeah, it's on a daily basis. There's these little things that trigger your anger, and you just gotta kind of set it aside and just go about life and enjoy life as much as you can. And so it's a little difficult when I was thinking that today. Actually, I went to a place where I want to work, and they were playing like mind games in there, and I was just thinking to myself, and it was just kind of making me upset. And I was like, uh, does everything have to be a head trip? It's like I was just reminded that like when you're in this program, like every effing thing is a head trip. It's like and I really feel like where I live is particularly a head trip. Out here in this valley, it's like everything is a head trip out here, and it's like it doesn't need to be. It's totally ridiculous. But the psychs, like Tom Cruz says when he jumps on the couch and all that stuff, is it's out of control. And I'll get into that for a second here. It's like now that I said that, Tom Cruise, Scientology, I think it's all a cover for saying that religion is crazy, and that they're exposing religion by saying, no, we're going to be Scientologists to say it's crazy, but it's all done, you know, I think to undermine. Uh, I don't know. I just think that really it might be a front to say religion is crazy because they're saying the psychs are crazy and stuff, but then they have their religion. It's like your religion's crazy and the psychs are crazy and Dianetics and all that. It's kind of interesting, but like I would never go. I would never join a cult. I don't think. I I I believe in like higher power in the universe, and I think if there was a god, that they'd probably be a psychopath. But there's probably some truth to what Scientology says in their little story and stuff about aliens coming down and stuff. And anyways, I just think that Scientology is a front to as exposed religions around the world because you say like you point to Scientology and you say, man, that Scientologist is crazy. He's in a cult or something, and then the things they do are very similar to the other ecclesiastic things that go on in other religions and stuff. And so, I think it's kind of ironic when people say Scientology is crazy and then their religions are doing very similar things. And that's probably why Scientology is doing what they're doing. But I don't really know, or maybe it's Sophia working through everybody and making our folly known, I guess, or something. I don't know. Anyways, I was reading this book called We Are Electric today, and it came across a man by the name of Bjorn Nordenstrom. And he was a scientist, he was a researcher, a doctor who kind of made discoveries regarding bioelectricity in the body. And he was held out as a quack for a long time, but it's kind of coming out now that he was very much right. He treated cancer with bioelectricity, and I'm reading about that in the book. I don't know, I don't have full knowledge of the medical system and cutting edge technology. I just know that bioelectricity is starting to come across with new new cutting edge technology around the world. And it talks about this Bjorn Nordenstrom, and I find his name a little interesting. Like it may have been an anagram or something, or cryptogram or something, but I don't know. And he I ended up going to China and conducting research and doing treatments on people in China. And then he just kind of like disappeared. And supposedly he died in 2006, but I don't know. And maybe he's part of the breakaway civilization. And, Barbara Walters interviewed him on 60 Minutes. It was talked about in the book. And very much the language she was using in there and the way she was talking about him was almost like she was uh, saying like, "Oh, he could be a fraud or something," and it's almost like they were hiding technology that they were using. And if you listen to Robert Naslund, he's a Swedish researcher who has talked about how there was push button people, and that there was two British scientists. I can't remember their names, but they wrote a book about Vietnam, and they said that uh, there was an assassination program, but that there's technology in use that's controlled by people, and it goes into different people's control. But now supposedly it's in better people's control. I don't know, but it can create harmful effects on people biologically and positive effects, so that they can treat you, they can give you good health, or they can give you bad health. They're playing God with people with this technology, and I think it's very much connected to bioelectricity. And so it's interesting that Barbara Walters would be calling this guy a fraud, because maybe they didn't want people to know that, or I don't know, maybe Barbara Walters wasn't in the know. I don't know. But maybe they didn't want people to know about this technology because they very much used it for controlling society. And so, yeah. All right. So I was learning about that today, Bjorn Nordenstrom. And so, yeah, I'm going to stop here because it's been too long. Okay, goodbye.